man, you know, I don't know if selfless is the right word, act, but it had to be my grandma. She would always put everything in like perspective. Even yesterday, I was talking to her, you know, and she's talking about this virus that's coming out, or not the virus, excuse me, the vaccine that's coming out. She said they're giving it to first responders and the medical field first, and then to the nursing homes. And she's like, screw that, I'm a nursing home person. I don't think we're on their deathbed anyways. Give it to a school teacher or something, right? And like just the way her thinking always growing up gets me thinking. But she was talking about, she's at the dog park and she's complaining about how her back hurts. And she says, you know, my back's sore, but then I don't really have any room to talk because I wouldn't be complaining if my back hurt walking around if I didn't have any legs and couldn't walk and was in a wheelchair. And I'm like, well, yeah. So she always puts things in perspective like that my whole life growing up. Like, for instance, if you borrowed my car and you crashed it, and then you would bring it back to her, and she would ask you, like, are you okay? And you'd be like, yeah, but I'm really concerned, you know, about your car. And she'd be like, yeah, but I would understand if you came to me with news that you just found out your kid was diagnosed with cancer and has 2 months to live. Now we have something to worry about. You crashing my car that can be fixed, it's just stuff is nothing, right? So that, to me, the biggest, I guess, lesson in my life is learning that stuff is just stuff, and putting everything in perspective all the time with how, I think that's why I'm so easygoing with the way things are, and I don't get mad at people over stupid shit. But so she probably, that would probably be the biggest selfless act I could say she's done to me, was teach me how to live a life worth living. My grandfather is like a man of very few words, right? We didn't really sit down and talk, and I mean, we did, but it wasn't, he was not like my grandma. My grandma was the one who always did the talking. She's a fucking chatty Cathy. And so if you ever need to go on a long road trip, make sure you bring my grandma, because your ears will be fucking bleeding and you'll know everything by the time you get there. But yeah, I mean, I learned a lot of things from my grandpa also, but he would never ever ask me a question he didn't already know the answer to. Like, he's very intelligent. So when I was a kid growing up with him, if I did something wrong, sometimes I'd even get in the car with them, and like, let's say they picked me up from jail, right? We'd get in the car and I'd be ready to get like ridiculed or grounded or yelled at, and they wouldn't say anything, which is almost worse. And sometimes I'd be like, so, like, you don't want to know what happened? And my grandpa would be like, well, you know what you did, right? And he goes, and I know what you did, so what else is there to talk about? And I'd be like, all right, you know. And that was kind of how our conversations would go. And I'm like, so am I grounded? He's like, no. You know, like, why? You know what you did wrong. Like, that was wrong, clearly. So why? I don't know. It's just a weird way of, I guess, raising me, you know? Did I quit doing dumb shit? Yeah, well, I matured and got older, but I never really did dumb. Like, I didn't steal cars or drink and drive or do drugs. It was always getting into a fight. Like, that was like my big thing, is we'd go out Saturday night, get into a fight. And back in the day, when I was like street fighting, they would just take you to jail. You'd get like, you know, we'd be drunk in public, and they'd take you to jail until you sobered up and let you go. We didn't ever really get, maybe you'd get an assault charge, you know, or something stupid, but a lot of times it was never really any criminal charge to end up after you got out of jail. So that was kind of it. So here's a funny story that a lot of people don't know about my grandfather. Is I think it was 21 years old, 21 or 22. He was in medical school to become a doctor, had a severe stroke, and lost everything. Right? Like, couldn't speak, couldn't walk, could barely breathe, body had to relearn everything again. The medical field wanted to kick him out of medical school, told him he had 1 year to relearn everything. So my grandmother started with Dick and Jerry kicked the ball, you know, like the kids' books. Worked all the way up through kids' books, middle school, high school, and all the college courses, and just work it every day, relearning, reteaching, redoing everything. And he went back in and passed his medical exam and became a doctor. And at the time, they were living in Cheyenne Wells, Colorado, which is like a teeny tiny little town. And they worked at a doctor's office there. So my grandma would work as a nurse during the day and then teach my grandpa all the stuff. So the crazy story is, people would like die. So they'd have the bodies in there, and then they would just dissect them and like autopsy them almost, and go through it and learn like that. But imagine, this is, oh, what, 60, 70 years ago? Mm-hmm. So it's not, maybe even more than that. So that shit wouldn't fly today, but back then, no one, you know what I mean? A dead body was a dead body, it was gonna get buried, so they would just go do it, and that like fast-tracked them, basically your own biology kit every single day, like dissecting and learning. And these are the stories I'd grow up listening to all the time, right? Like, wow, that's insane. And so it was to the point where he didn't even know who my grandmother was. How crazy is that, right? Like, looked at her like, have no idea who you are. So for my grandma, you want to talk about a selfless act? She wanted to become a doctor also. So she neglected her entire decisions of what she wanted to do in life, hooked her fucking caboose to my grandpa's engine, and just locked down and gave him everything, right? Retaught him everything that she was learning, plus more, for him to become the doctor that he wanted to become. So that is the biggest selfless act I've ever seen anybody do in all my life. And basically, when you look at somebody and they look back at you and they have no idea who you are. Now, the stories that my grandma and grandpa tell me when I grew up, my grandpa was a good-looking dude, young, and a doctor. So getting women wasn't a problem, right? That was kind of, you know, but then he had a stroke, couldn't move the whole side of his body, left side of his body, and no, right side of his body. Could you imagine going to the hospital to see somebody and they look at you like they don't even know you, and then you trying to convince this person like, man, you love me, right? You know what I mean? So he had to like re-fall in love, and it's like a crazy story. And she stuck by it, and she said he was mean son of a bitch. Yeah, to her then, because he didn't know, you know, like it'd almost be like someone just showing up at your door like, hey, we live together, you know, you'd be uncomfortable. And she had to like change his diaper and see him naked, and he was, you know, didn't. So she just, she did it. Damn. Buckled down, and he became a doctor.
He's looking for a little backup verification here.
Yeah. But she's a better storyteller than me. The best part is when I call my grandma on Facetime and she answers it like a real phone. She's probably at the dog park with the dog.
Hey.
So I'm sitting down talking to this camera about, how old was Grandpa when he had his stroke?
23.
I said 21. Okay, I was a little off. 23.
We got married in 1959, so this would have been 1958. He was his first year in medical school, and then when he was ready to start his second year, it was October. He had just been in school about a month, and he had this really massive stroke. His mom didn't want us to get married because she wanted him to marry an Italian girl. And I have all kinds of heritage in me, so she was against the marriage. But then after he had the massive stroke, he was so crippled he couldn't walk or talk, and there wasn't care of him, so she consented. We got married early one morning. We didn't send out any invitations or anything because we didn't want people to come to the wedding to see how crippled and terrible that he looked. And then he had a friend that said there's a little town on the Colorado border that's desperate for nurses. So we went out there, and they gave us a condemned building to live in. We didn't have a bed, we just got a mattress. But this lady came in, she was in labor, so I went and got him, and I said, come sit with me and I'll show you how to deliver a baby. And so he went in there with me, and of course it was an old ranch lady, and this was like her fourth baby, and it was easy as pie. But he watched deliver the baby, me deliver the baby and take care of it, and I could see things were kind of twinkling in his eyes a little bit, and I thought this could be the beginning of something. So then we had a lady that died, and I said, we'll do the autopsy. And so we brought her to another little condemned house, and we did the autopsy on a kitchen table. And we cut into her, and all of a sudden I looked up at Donald, and he was like really starting to get it. He looked wonderful. Anyway, we measured and took and we decided she had died of a bowel obstruction. So we wrote all the report up and everything. It was really interesting. Then one night there was an 18-wheeler wreck, and they brought the driver into us because it was real near us. And I had to check him, I had to check his vital signs like every 3 minutes or something for a while, and then every 10 minutes and everything. And I was checking them, and they would be like 88/40, and then he would do nothing more than just move his arm a little bit, and it would go up to 210/100. And so I went and woke up Donald, and I said, I don't know what to do. This man's blood pressure just he barely moves a finger, and it goes way up. And he came up, and he was standing there, and he said, he has pheochromocytoma. And it came out almost crystal clear. And I didn't even know what it was, and he said, you have to call the hospital in Denver, and we have to get him there. He needs surgery on his adrenal glands and his kidney right away. And his speech was a little muffled, but I understood everything he was saying. So I said, you have to talk to him. I can't. I don't know enough to say all that. So he got on, and he talked to him, and an ambulance came, and they got him. And the next day, this doctor called and said, could I speak to the doctor that diagnosed this? And I said, yes, just a minute. And I handed the phone to Donald, and he goes, just want to tell you that was a great diagnosis. He goes, we saved man, and he's doing great. And at that point, we decided that it was time to go back to Denver and try to get back into medical school. But anyway, we went back, and they said he couldn't be a doctor. He couldn't go to medical school because he was too damaged. He was way too crippled, and he said they have to do a CAT scan on his brain. So we did the CAT scan, and they found out there was about 1/4 of his brain had been destroyed. And they said that was too much, and he couldn't go back to medical school. And so I had like the world's biggest fit in the whole entire world. I told him he was already in medical school, and I would go to the TV stations and newspaper, and I will tell that a medical school that took care of sick people wouldn't let a student come back. And so they agreed. They gave him all kinds of tests and everything, and they agreed to let him come back on a very tentative nature to see how he did. They watched him very closely. Well, to make a very long story short, he graduated in the top 10 of his class. He was chosen Doctor of the Year, and we went to California to the Shrine Theater to have him presented Doctor of the Year award. We stopped off at San Simeon Castle to just explore it, and he picked up fulminating pneumococcal pneumonia. Anyway, he got super sick. We were in Reno when I realized he was dying. So we got him into an emergency room, and they took a chest x-ray and said he's drowning from the inside out, that there's not much hope.
You know, if you wouldn't have made a fuss, if you wouldn't have said something, if you wouldn't have stood up for him again, like, how much different would life have been?
Well, you know, I'll tell you something. There's two important times in your life. One is when you're born. The second one is when you know why you were born. And I know why I was born. Excuse me. Yeah, I know. I was born to do that.
Across. Double. Good. 3 more. Good. 2 more. 1 more. Good. Reverse it. Other side. Left kick first. Switch. Good. Back down to 4, brother. I was good at 3. So we go 1 kick, 1 knee, and 1 kick. Good. 1 kick, 1 knee, 1 kick. Good. 2 kicks. 2 knees. 2 knees. Yeah. 2 kicks. Holy fuck. Okay. Good. 2 kicks. 2 knees. 2 kicks. Good. 3 kicks. 1, 2, 3 knees. 1, 2, 3 kicks. 1, 2, 3. Good. 4 kicks. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 knees. 1, 2, 3, 4. 40 kicks. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 kicks. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, baby. Top of the mountain. Let's go, Cerrone. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposite side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Catch your breath. Go back down. Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. Oh shit! That's how we do it, Cowboy.